And welcome back. Welcome back to this penultimate lesson in the course, the past perfect progressive. After this, we just have one more to do. But we're going to talk about the past perfect progressive this time. So if you look at the two documents to my left, first of all, we're going to compare the past perfect, a little revision, and then we're going to talk about the past perfect progressive. So what's the difference? So if you remember the past perfect, two actions in the past in the same sentence that are not related. They're not connected in time or they're not connected in action. For example, I had lived in Brazil for 2 years when I met you, which means that I had been living in Brazil for 2 years, and then at some point I met you, but there's actually no connection between the two. Meeting you did not interrupt me living in Brazil. But if we look at the past perfect progressive, there is a relationship between the two actions. For example, I had been living in Brazil for 2 years when I met you. So the difference in function is that the past perfect, I had lived in Brazil. I had lived. So it's had plus the past participle of the verb. Whereas the past perfect progressive is I had been living. So it's had, always, been, always, and then the gerund came. Now, as I've already said, the difference between the past perfect and the past perfect progressive is that in the past perfect, there is no relation between the two past actions. But in the past perfect progressive, it's useful to use when there is a relationship between those two past actions. Let's think about a work situation. Let's imagine that you have been working on a report for your boss, but you're late because you had a problem. So you want to connect the two ideas, the working on the report and the reason why you're late, as you explain to your boss. For example, okay, Renata, why haven't you sent me the report yet? I wanted the report at 5 o'clock this evening. Renata replies, I'm very, very sorry, but I had been working on the report for 4 hours when my Wi-Fi stopped working, and it's only just returned. So let's think about that sentence. I had been working on the report. Had plus been plus the gerund working. I had been working on that report, a continuous action, when the Wi-Fi stopped working. The verb stopped in the simple past. So the first verb was in the past perfect progressive and the second verb was in the simple past. The Wi-Fi stopped, interrupted my ability to continue to write the report and deliver it by 5 o'clock. So again, let me repeat it. I had been working on the report for 4 hours when the Wi-Fi stopped working. Let's look at some examples. Renata, how long had you been reading that book for when I arrived home last night?
I had been reading that book for 45 minutes before you arrived home last night.
Renata, had we been living in the UK for long when we bought our first house?
I had been living in the UK for 1 year before we bought our first house.
Renata, had you been speaking English for long when I first met you?
No, I hadn't been speaking English for long when I first met you.
Okay, and then thank you again, Renata, for those 3 excellent examples. And so if you still don't understand or completely understand the past perfect progressive, as I keep suggesting, just watch the video over and over again. Okay, because copy, 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 repeat, repeat, repeat is the key to learning languages. Now, as I said, it's not a completely common tense. The present perfect progressive, the past perfect progressive, and the future perfect progressive, it's not something we would use every day in everyday language, but they are very, very useful, especially in work situations. For example, you may need to give an explanation to your boss at work, and being able to connect 2 past actions and 1 past action interrupting another past action can be very useful. Now there's one more tense to go. That's the future perfect progressive. Now, if you have understood the past perfect progressive, then the future perfect progressive is going to be much easier to understand, because they are virtually the same, except that the future perfect progressive is in the future and we use the word will again. So let's move on to the final and last tense.
My head in the clouds, I don't know where we go. I feel like it's changed, love. I'm losing my mind, feeling that kind of love. I feel like a deep hole. You give me something that I can't give you here. Tell me what you're thinking, I need to know you're feeling. If you crush on me, you need to know my story. But don't get too close to me, cause I need my fantasy. Here I am, falling down, crashing down, and I feel like I don't need you. Here I am, falling down, deep inside, and I feel like I don't need you.